Tov. Today's daf yomi is Bava Metzia Yud Gimel. We're going to start at Yud Beis and Beis at the Mishnah, and 12b at the Mishnah, and this daf is dedicated for Yeshua for Am Yisrael, and this Eis Tzara, a Shmira for the Chayalim, a Tzara for the Shvuyim. So the Mishnah tells us Matza Shtirei Chov, that let's say a person finds, somebody dropped, he finds a note of debt. Let's say Shimon owes Reuben money. If there is a clause of a guarantee, meaning to say the guy sells him the property, says, listen, if I can collect, if somebody comes and seizes my property, then I'm going to go and take the money from all the properties you if you can't pay me back the money, then I'm going to go seize from everybody you sold property to. In between, there was a lien basically on his estate. If this note which they found has this guarantee clause in it, then we don't give it back to the lender. Why? Because the court will use this document to go collect from the purchasers. And so, but if they're, and the Gemara is going to have to explain why. But if there's no guarantee written in, then yachzer, then we return it. Why? The Gemara is going to explain. Because the courts will not collect from the purchasers if there's no guarantee. That's the position of Bava Meir. The Chum say ben kach u ben kach lo yachzer bezin Ephraim man. The Chum are the position, even if there's no guarantee written in, we don't return it, because we assume that if there's no guarantee, it's still there. That because every document has to have a guarantee, otherwise, why would the person lend the money? And so therefore, the court will be able to seize. So therefore, you don't return the money to the lender. So the Gemara says, "But my askinon, what's the scenario that we're talking about? If you want to say that the borrower is admitting that here's this note that says he owes money and it wasn't paid. If you want to say that that's what we're referring to. And if you want to say that the borrower is admitting that he hasn't paid, well, if there is a guarantee in it, why can't he return it? Let the guy go and collect the money from the people who purchased property from him. Moda, he admits to this loan, so he should be able to return. Let's say, so give the money back to the lender, so the lender could go collect it. And if you want to say we're talking about a case where the borrower is not admitting to the note, well, if there's no guarantee written in it, why would we give it back to the lender? Granted, he can't collect from property which has a lien on it, but he can at least collect from the borrower's property, the free and clear property. So the Gemara says, okay, no, we're talking about a case here where the borrower admits. So if that's the case, why does Rabbi Meir say you return it if there's no guarantee written in? What's the reason in general why we don't return it? If there's a guarantee in it, we don't return it, says Rabbi Meir. And also the Chachamim, the Chashin Shema Kasav Wilvos Benisan Tishrei. Maybe they wrote the note, it said he was borrowing it in Nisan, but he didn't actually get the money until Tishrei, meaning to say that the document does not reflect the reality of when he borrowed the money. And then the lender will come and seize the money improperly from the purchasers. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, well, if that's the case, all contracts that come before us, let us be concerned. You should never allow anybody to collect from the contracts, because maybe he borrowed the money. The date of the borrowing of the money does not reflect the date written in the contract. Gemara says, no, this case is special. Why? Most documents don't have an internal blemish on them, but here this document is problematic. Hani rei, since this document is problematic, since the document fell, therefore we could say If it would have been a kosher document, we wouldn't have let it fall. And so from the fact that he let it fall, it shows that there was a problem with the document. So therefore, we don't allow the purchasers, we don't allow the lender to go seize the property from the purchasers. So the Gemara says, Ella, if that's the case, how do we jive this document with this one, which says, if this is the case, that we're saying that the reason why you can't collect is we're concerned that the document was written in Nisan, but he didn't get the money till Tishrei, and then I'll go seize the money from the purchasers. What do you do with the following Mishnah? And the Mishnah tells us, Hadatanan, now which it states in Bava Basra, at the very end of Bava Basra, it states, that you are allowed to write a note for the borrower, even though the lender is with him. Meaning, say, even though he's not getting the money, then you could write the date on the loan. And you could even, so the Gemara asks the question, how can you write such a document? Aren't we going to say that we have a problem here, that the date does not reflect the date of the loan? And so therefore you're going to seize money from the purchasers, you're going to seize property improperly. How can you write it? So it says Rav Asi, no, this Mishnah that allows you to write the document even without the money being given, that's talking about a case of, or on top of 13a, a special type of document called a shtari hakna is top of 13a. Talking about a shtari hakna. What's a shtari hakna? That he's giving him he writes in the contract, the borrower says, I'm putting a lien on all my property to you from today, even though I'm not going to get the money until a later date. Even if I never end up borrowing it, I'm putting a lien on all my assets. Because he basically put a lien, he himself put the lien on it. And so therefore you can write this document. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, if that's the case, our Mishnah here, where it says that if there is a guarantee written into the document, you can't return it, and we say, why can't you not return it? We say, kishachayev moda, the borrower admits to it, and we shema kasav lovos benisan, tishrei, and our concern is that maybe he borrowed it in Nisan, but he didn't actually use it till Tishrei, and then the lender will now come and seize this property improperly. Why can we not return the document? Why don't we look and see what kind of document it is? If it's a shtarakna, if it's this document where he put a lien on his property, there's a lien on it. He should return it. The guy could collect it. And in b'shtar de lo akna, and if you want to say, well, it's not a document of akna, we don't have to be actually concerned that there's this document that he didn't put a lien on it. Daha amris, because didn't you say kileka malva bade lokasvina, and that we don't write this note if there's no if the money's not being lent at that time? We're on top of 13a. 13a, you're gonna have to turn the page. So Amrle, no, that you have a different text. Yeah, 13a. So Amrle Ravasi. So how do we explain what our Mishnah is referring to? So it says Ravasi explains, Afagav Deshtare de Lavakna, even though this is not the document called the document of Akna, Kileka Malva Bade, and we say Lokasvinin, and yes, you're right that when the money is not being lent at that moment, we're not going to write the document, the loan document, but our Mishnah is saying still, Masnisin, we still don't return it. Why? Even the Nafal Israel, because since the document fell, we're saying the whole document has a problem with it. And so therefore we have to be concerned that maybe what happened is that there was basically a document written improperly. So that's what we're worried about here. We're worried that it was an improper document, so we don't return it. So exactly. So once it falls, then also the whole presumptive status of trusting the note is in a problem. Abaye now gives a different explanation. So again, what was the first approach? The first approach is that we're saying that we say that if there is a document that you find, if there's a guarantee on it, Rabbi Meir says you can't return it. Why can you not return it? Because we're concerned that maybe the mayor says you can't return it because they're going to go and seize money from, maybe he said he's borrowing it in Nissan, but he really only borrowed it in Tishrei. You can go seize the property improperly. So the Gemara says, but how can you do that? Didn't we say from the Mishnah that in Bava Metzia that you can't write a note if you're not actually lending the money, if you're not actually taking the money? The Gemara says, no, it's possible that it would be that Mishnah is referring to a case that the Mishnah Bava Metzia that says you could do it is talking about a case of a shtar akna. And so therefore the Gemara says, well, if that Mishnah is talking about shtar akna, so what's the case here? The case in our Mishnah, if it's a shtar akna, then he would be allowed to take it. But if it's not a shtar akna, then we would see it has to be a shtar akna. So we say no, it's possible that even though you're not supposed to borrow the money, write the document without lending the money, maybe this case was a problematic document. Abaye gives a different answer. Abaye says, Abaye Amar, Eidav b'chasumav zachanlo, v'ashfilu shtare delav hakna. So Abaye says, no, the moment you sign the document, the witness has signed the document, then what's happening is there's a lien that's coming on the property. So meaning to say that this is how Abaye is explaining the Mishnah in Bava Metzia that says that we write a document for the borrower without the lender. He says that could take place even though it's not a document of Hakna, and even if the guy is going to come and claim the document from today, and even though he didn't borrow the money till later, nevertheless every document is basically almost to effect becoming a document of Hakna, and so therefore that's what Abaye's that's Abaye's answer. And so for there, our Mishnah that says that you could borrow the document even though he's not with him, he's talking about a case is afilu shtari delav akna, even those documents that are not akna, because basically it's always the case. And so therefore we're going to say that, so we have to have this concern. So the Gemara is going, and why does Abaye have to give this answer? Mishum dekashule, because Abaye is bothered. Kivin the amras b'shtari delav akna. Since you said that it's a document that if it's not hakna, that kileis l'malva badei lo kasvinan. So since Abaye said that since it's a document that's not hakna, if the lender is not there, we wouldn't write the note. Meaning, if the money is not being borrowed, then we don't write it. We shouldn't be concerned about it. So therefore, we don't have to be concerned about this forgery. And so therefore, that's going to be Abaye's explanation. That the Mishnah Bava Metzia is saying is basically saying from that moment there's a lien on the property. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, so again, we're going to now address Abaye's question. Abaye says that every time the witnesses sign the document, it basically puts a lien on the property. So the Gemara asks the question. Well, according to Abaye, how does Abaye explain following Mishnah from that we're going to have in a couple of dapim? It says, Matzakite Nashim. If you find a get, V'shachrurei Avadim, or a document of emancipation, or a daitiki, a document like a will, matana or a gift, v'shovim receipts, harei ze lo yachzir. You're not allowed to return them back to the person who's supposed to be the recipient of this document. Shema ktuvim ayu v'nimach aleim. Name. Maybe they were just written, but then the person who wrote the document decided not to give it. Well, what do we care if once he wrote them, he decided not to give them? Amris, but didn't you just say Eidav b'chasumav zachin? That once the witnesses sign it takes effect. The Gemara says, yeah, Hani Mili. When do we say once the witnesses sign it takes effect? Only if the document eventually reached the hands of the person who was supposed to reach. But where if the document never reached the hands of the person who was supposed to reach, then lo amrina, we don't say it. So now Gemara says, well, according to Abaye, how would Abaye explain our Mishnah? Elamas Nisan, our Mishnah, the Katani, Matzah Shtar Echov, that if you find this note, that if there's guarantee written into the document, well, yachzir, you can't return it. Vukimna kishachayev moda, and we said, what's the case here? Where the borrower admits to the loan, mishum shema kasav lovos benisim lovat tishrei, and he didn't, and because our concern is that maybe he's the document says he borrowed in Nisan, but he really didn't borrow in Tishrei. He didn't borrow until Tishrei. Bishlam or Ravasi could explain our Mishnah. He says Bishtari Aknaisa, Mukila, then Bishtari do Aknaisa. Abaye, according to Ravasi, who says that the Mishnah of Bava was talking about a Shtarakna, he could say that this case here, and our Mishnah here, is talking about it's not a Shtarakna. Kudamrina, and we have to be concerned that maybe the document was forged or funny business. So therefore, we don't return it. According to Abaye, who says the Mishnah and Bava Basra is talking about the reason why we write it is because once the witnesses sign the document, there's a lien on the property. If that's the case, you should be able to return this document to the lender here from our Mishnah. How would Abaye explain our Mishnah? Ma'iko and Meimar. So Abaye would say, Masnisan Hainu Taima. What's the reason from our Mishnah that we don't return, that if you find a note, we don't return it to the lender if it's a guarantee on it, because according to Rabbi Meir, because they might come to collect from the purchasers, or according to the Rabbanan also. What's the reason why you don't return it? Because Abaye says the reason is we're concerned that the lender and the borrower have figured out a way to defraud the purchasers, because he says, oh, here's a note on me, I can't pay it back, go collect from the people, I had a lien on my property, and now they'll go seize all their assets. And so therefore, for this reason, we don't return such a document to the lender, according to both the Meir and the Rabbanan. So the Gemara says, Shmuel, but what about the position of Shmuel, which we're going to get to, God willing, the end of today's daf, really it's on daf Yudaled. What about the position of Shmuel, who says, Shmuel says we don't have to be concerned about this fraud. We don't have to be concerned that the lender and the borrower are in cahoots. According to Shmuel, why would Abaye say you don't return the document to the lender? Now, it would make sense. Shmuel would say, if Shmuel said like Ravasi, who say Bishtar Akna Muki Masnisan Bishtari Akna. According to Shmuel, if Shmuel followed the position of Ravasi, who said that the Mishnah from Bava Basra was talking about a case where there was a lien on it, it was a Shtar Akna, and therefore our Mishnah here is talking about a case that it's a Shtar that's not Akna. That would make sense. At least Savar Kabaye, the Amar Edav V'Chasum of Zachanlo. But if Shmuel holds like Abaye, who says that when the witnesses sign a document, there's a lien on it, so there's a lien on this property, so then according to Shmuel, if he follows Abaye's approach, how would Abaye explain why you don't return a document that you find to the lender? So Shmuel would explain that Abaye would say, Shmuel Muki Masnisin She'en Chayav Modeh. He says, no, the reason why you don't return to the lender is because the borrower is not admitting to the note. He says it's forgery. Well, so if that's the case, how would Shmuel explain the position of Rabbi Meir, who says that when there is no guarantee in it, you do return it? Then, according to Shmuel, if the borrower doesn't admit to the loan and you find this note, why do you return it to the lender if there's no guarantee? You can't collect from the property that has the lien on it, but if you're returning the note to the lender could still collect it from the free and clear properties of the borrower. So how would Shmuel explain it? So Gemara explains Shmuel Tameh. Shmuel would explain our Mishnah, according to Abaye, he would say, following his reasoning, the Amar Shmuel, Omar Rabbi Meir, that Rabbi Meir is in the position, so he says, no, Rabbi Meir is of the position, Shmuel's of the position that if there's a document that doesn't have a guarantee written in it, you can never collect from it. Meaning to say there's something, Rashi explains, that the borrower could say, So basically, the borrower would say, if there's no guarantee in the document, we're very suspicious about this document. And Shmuel would say that if there's no achrayas nechasim, if there's no guarantee written in the document, you can never collect from it. You can never collect because it's the way Rashi explains it is that if there's no guarantee, it's like an oral loan, and so therefore. You can't use it to collect it. A document is supposed to have a guarantee in it. What kind of document doesn't have a lien on it? Nobody would sell you property or take out a note or take out a loan without a guarantee. So that's what it says. So if that's the case, if you can't collect from it, so if that's the case, if you can't collect from it, so why are we returning this note to the lender if there's no guarantee on it? What's the point? You can't collect from it. Why are we returning it? So the Gemara explains, Amar Rebbe, no, son Bar Shaya, Latzuro paid Tzuchu. So the only the only reason why we're returning it is so that we can use it as not as a note to collect money, but as for the paper itself, for the value of the paper, to use it as like a bottle cap. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, well, why can't we return it to the borrower? Why are we giving it to the lender? Why can't the borrower get the value of the paper? The Gemara says, no. No, we're not going. We're on top of 13b. No, the borrower is the one who says it never existed. So therefore, we're not going to give him the piece of paper. Amar Rabbi Elazar. So now Rabbi Elazar says this machokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, where the Chachamim say you never return the note, and the Rabbi Meir says you return it if there's no guarantee written on it. This dispute, machokes b'she'ein chayav modeh. That's where the borrower does not admit to it. The Rabbi Meir Savar, Meir's in the position, shtar she'ein bo achrayas nechasim, that if there's no guarantee, eino gova, you can't collect. Only mishanu lo b'nei chari, and so therefore you can return it for the purposes of the bottle cap. The Rabbanan Savri migba gavi, that if there's no guarantee in it, you would be able to collect it. So therefore you don't return it to him because he could try to collect with it. But where the borrower admits that this is a note that he wrote, divrei kol yachzir. Says Rabbi Elazar, if the borrower actually admits, everybody would say you return it. And we don't have to say, oh, they're doing a fraudulent approach to try to collect from the purchasers by claiming it was never paid when it was really paid. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says, no, the machokes is kishachayev modeh. No, the machokes is where the borrower admits. The Rameir Sava, Rameir's of the position that shtar she'ein bo achrayas nechasim mimishabdi hu delo gavi aval mimnechari migba gavi. Rameir's of the position that if there is no guarantee written in the document, you could collect from the free and clear property. But Rabbanan Savri mishabdi nami gavi, that you can collect even from the property that has a lien on it. But when there is no when the borrower is not admitting it, everybody's at the position that you don't return it because the chayshino appear on, because we have to be concerned that it was actually paid, and now he's going to collect it through forgery. So basically, Rebbe Lezer is saying the dispute between Rameir and the Rabbanan is when the borrower has not admitted it, but when that's where they argue. But when the borrower has admitted it, everybody says you return it. We don't have to be concerned about Pira own, that he already paid it. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says the dispute is when the borrower admits it. That Rabbi Meir there says you return it, even without a lien, because you could collect it. And the Rabbanan say you don't. The Mayor says you can return it because you can't collect from it. It's just returning it. The Rabbi Yochanan says the dispute is when the borrower admits it. When he admits it, then you could collect from this note. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says you don't return it, according to the Rabbanan, because you could even collect from the property was a lien. But when the borrower is not admitting it, everybody says you don't return it, because we have to be concerned about Pira own, that we have to be concerned that it was actually paid, like the borrower says. So Tanya Kavasi to Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara says we have a brisa that supports this position of Rabbi Yochanan. V'tiyuvta de Rabbi Lazar b'chada, and therefore it's a refutation to Rabbi Lazar in one case. V'tiyuvta de Shmuel b'tarti, and a refutation of Shmuel in two cases. So what's the brisa that supports Rabbi Yochanan? It says in the brisa, Matzah shtarecho, if you find this note, v'yesh b'hem achrayis nechasim, and the note has a guarantee in it, aval pisha shnei modim, even though they both admit to it, lo yachzir, lo lazeh, lo lazeh. You don't return it to the lender or to the borrower. But if there's no guarantee written in it, bisman shalova modeh, if the borrower admits to it, yachzir malveh, you return it to the lender. Ein alova modeh, if the borrower does not admit to having paid it, well yachzir lo lazeh, lo lazeh. You don't return it to either one. That's the position of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir omer shtari sheyesh b'hem achrayis nechasim. Rabbi Meir is in the position that if there's a document which has a guarantee, go over nechasim mishubadim, you collect from property that has a lien. But if there's no guarantee written in it, collect from the free and clear property. Whereas the Chachamim say, in both cases, you could collect from the property that has a lien on it, whether it was written with Shiba Karkos or not. So the Gemara says this is the Tiyufta of Rabbi Lazar B'chada. That why is this a refutation of Rabbi Lazar in one case? The Amar or Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Lazar had explained that Rabbi Meir says Shtar she'im b'achrayis nechasim, that if there's no guarantee written in it, eino gova minochasim shibadim uminochasim v'nechorim. He says if there's no guarantee written in it, you can't use it to collect because we assume it's a forgery. The Amar Beil Rabbi Meir Beil Rabbanan lo chashinan lekinunya, and he says that both Rabbi Meir and Rabbanan are not concerned about fraud. Ubraisa katani, and the brisa, which is referring to the brisa that says that Rabbi Meir says that if it was a note that has the guarantee in it, you could collect from property that there's a loan on it, that there's a lien on it. Ubraisa katani, that and whereas the brisa that writes shtar she'en bo achrayis nechasim, whereas the brisa that says that if there's a document that has no guarantee in it, but if there is, but if there's a lien on it, you don't collect it. But from Bnei Chor, you do collect it. Vikatani, and so too, and it states the katani, like it states. So according to this approach, both according to Rabbi Meir and the Rabbana, we're concerned about kununya, the katani, because it says at the beginning of the price. So what does it say? Even if they both admit, you don't return it. Why? Because we're concerned about kununya. We're concerned they're doing fraud. Because we're concerned about kununya. So the Gemara says, why do we say that this price is a refutation of Rabbi Lazar in one case? We have two difficulties with Rebbe Lezer. First of all, he explained that Rabbi Meir was talking about one is that whether we're talking about a document that has no guarantee written in it, whether you could collect from free and clear property or not, and also his explanation of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim by a document that you could collect from the purchasers and the borrower admits. Whether or not we're concerned about Kanunya or not. So the Gemara explains that it's really one explanation. It's really one explanation because it's one reasoning. The Mishum de Kamar Rabbi Lazar Machokas B'Shein Chayav Modeh, because Rabbi Lazar is at the position that the dispute is where the borrower is not admitting it. Humetaritz Hachi, and so therefore, for this reasoning, he explains Rabbi Meir in that manner. And why? How is it a refutation of Shmuel in two ways? Tiyufta b'Shmuel v'Tarti. Chada Rebbe Lazar, that one is because, like we challenge Rebbe Lazar, Damuki Masnisim, because Shmuel established that our Mishnah is talking about a case B'She'en Chayav Modeh, where the borrower is not admitting to his debt, and according to the Brisa, the dispute is where there is no guarantee and the borrower admits it, that he hasn't paid it. The Chada, and second case is Damar Shmuel. Shmuel said, and this is the second, it's why he's refuting him, because Shmuel says we're not concerned about Kununya. because Shmuel says, Matzah shtar hakna b'shuk, yachzir l'balam. If you find this document of hakna in the marketplace, you return it to the owners. Lo chayshinan l'piro. And Shmuel's position is we're not concerned about fraud. We're not concerned they already paid it. So therefore, it's a refutation on Shmuel on both. So the Gemara says, but to Yufta, the Katani Hacha, so here we say we return it. So so even though they both admit it, you don't return it. So therefore, we say you're concerned about piraon. And here in this case, for sure, where the borrower is not even here to admit it, the chayshinu of piraon. We have to be concerned about piraon. So Shmuel says we're not concerned about piraon, but this Brisa says we are concerned about it. So we'll stop here and we'll go over this, God willing, again at 8 a.m. A big shkoyach to everyone.